There we go.
Here we
All
go.
right, so welcome everyone. You are probably tuning in from our Pillars of Peace group or the personal pages of our speakers, and we're going to wait for a few people to sign on. I'm going to be looking away for a second because I want to be sure that we are live everywhere we need to be live. So stand by. Before we begin, I thank you to everybody who submitted questions for tonight's session, and I'll be introducing our speakers in a second. And we're gathering viewers right now, and by having it shared on our own individual pages. So I will be trying my best to monitor comments on the live stream that is happening on Facebook. And so we're working through Zoom and we are sharing onto our Facebook group Pillars of Peace as well as our individual pages and personal pages. So I will be watching the comments under Pillars of Peace group. So I don't know if I can go back and forth to my own personal page. So I will be answering comments there. Anything we don't get to, we will get to later. We can comment underneath the stream. So I'm going to pull up my questions here. So how about we get started, ladies, and I do my introductions, and then this is being recorded. So if anybody misses this live stream, they'll be able to watch it later, and we don't have to hold them up. So the first person that you see on your screen up in the top left is Kathy O'Connell. Kathy O'Connell is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she is at the Empowering You Center. And she is here tonight along with Dr. Delisa Martinez. And Dr. Delisa is a professor and also a licensed marriage and family therapist. And she helps people understand many, many things that have to do with all types of challenges in life. But she also has taught many classes on racism. And I can tell you that I learned a lot from these two ladies the other day when we were discussing what we were going to be talking about tonight. I thank many of you for sending in questions. We had a lot of questions and we were not going to be able to get to all of them tonight in the hour that we have, but we do welcome comments under the live stream that is in the Pillars of Peace group. So the first thing that I want to say is that I have come through so much learning myself in the last couple weeks and things that I didn't understand. And I put myself out there and said, I had no idea that there was so much fear that was still existing in June of 2020. And I immediately became defensive in the beginning. I still have friends who are getting very defensive, and I have learned so much. But what I was passionate about is that I wanted to fix it. I want everybody to heal and I want everybody to get along and I want to fix this issue that we're facing right now because things were divided in our nation before and now they're seeming to be more divided, but I see a lot of unity coming together. So these two ladies have taught me that I can't fix it. And that frustrated me for a little bit. But then I thought about 2 years ago when I lost my mom, and I started a support group for women who lost their mothers because we always say, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, I'm sorry for your loss. But until it happens to you, you really don't know what that feels like. And so I started a support group. We've been meeting for 2 years, and we laugh, we cry, we laugh, we listen, and we understand one another, and we get it, and that's enough. And that's when the aha moment happened for me because I realized that I can't bring anybody's mom back, but I can hold a safe space for people to just let out their emotions. And that's what Pillars of Peace is going to become. That's our goal, is to have a safe place. Right now, our focus is on the issues at hand with racism, but Pillars of Peace is for all kinds of peace. So we're talking about all kinds of challenges that people face. And going forward, what I'd like for this group to become is that we will hopefully do some weekly Zoom calls where we will invite members of the public to come on and to speak to the therapist and Dr. Delisa when she's available, and we will have open discussions where you can ask your questions live. They will not be broadcast on Facebook, but that would be my goal, is to keep the discussion going, because we have these march, we have these protests, we have heard, we understand, we're all trying to get it, and I want the discussion to continue and the understanding to evolve, because I've learned that this is going to take some time. So, all of that being said, we're going to get started, and let me get my list of questions here that I have on my screen next to me. First time I'm using like two screens at one time. So, oops, ladies, do you want to say hello to our crowd while I get this up here? Because I'm having a little bit of a problem.
Hey, everybody.
Say hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm so glad everybody's here. I'm so glad everybody took the time to tune in, and hopefully it'll be a powerful experience for everyone.
Absolutely. So Dr. DeLisa, I'm going to go to you first. So
Okay.
one of the important questions that I get from my friends who are white is that we're walking on eggshells. We don't know the right term. Do we say black? Do we say people of color? Do we say African American? And I get different opinions from all people. And I don't want to say the wrong thing tonight. I don't want anyone to get offended. So what do you recommend for us for this dialogue tonight, and for people going forward with a new understanding?
I think the answer is always it depends on who you're talking to. I interchange Black and African American, and I think those are pretty fair to say that either one will work. I would say that maybe because of the I think either one, you can use them interchangeably.
Okay.
That's my opinion, but that doesn't mean that that's the universal law.
Okay. Understood. I'm having trouble seeing the comments on the Facebook page, so that's why swipe left to reveal comments. Oh, there we go. Melissa, yes, we can see that you're here on the comments, and we can see that you're there. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the comments, because I can now see them on my screen. So I thank you for that.
Delisa, what do you think, with everything that's transpired and all of the discussions that are happening, what do you think is the most impactful thing, or what is the most important thing for you to impart to everybody on this forum, in this forum? What do you want people to know? What do you want people to learn or see?
What I really want, what I'm really wanting to approach this from is from a place of trauma. We all can relate to having had a traumatic experience, whether it's like a big trauma or whether it's a small one, or what we would deem a small trauma. And when we experience a trauma, it impacts us in a bunch of different ways. We go into protection mode. We go into self-preservation mode. Our brain changes. Like, there's studies that show that your brain changes when you experience a trauma. So when that traumatic experience happens again, or even something that is a trigger of it, you have a response to it. And what we are all experiencing, and it's what we're all experiencing globally now, I believe, is a response to that trauma. Just seeing George Floyd for 8 minutes and 46 seconds on that ground with that knee to his neck has had like massive impact. And this is not the first time that it's happened, of course, and it's unfortunately not going to be the last. The thing that I really want us to be aware of and learn and convey is that the racism and the things that are going on right now in the present are not new. They're even them being recorded now is not new anymore, because social media and creating the space for us to see what's been happening has been happening for a while now. The difference, I believe, is I don't know. It's like is whatever it is in the universe that's coming together, that's creating this space of let's take a stand and do something about it is what's different. And it's creating a lot of space for discussion. It's creating a lot of space for unity, but it's also creating a lot of space for misunderstanding too. And I think what's happening between Black and white and everywhere and everyone else is this misunderstanding and this idea that when I say we, I mean as Black people are being faced with having to explain yet again, having to defend yet again the trauma that we've experienced over and over. And that's, I came up with the title, I'm tired of talking about it. I said it almost facetiously, but that's where I am. And that's where a lot of us are. I won't speak, I will never speak for everybody who looks like me, but I know I get tired of feeling like I have to defend who I am. And I think that's where this discussion kind of started. And I want us to, but I think it's definitely important to have a dialogue about what that looks like, what that means, and how we can begin to like create some like actual unity and know that it's going to be a process.
And I think that that's that's a great way to start, because the discussion tonight, because for me, as I said when I opened, I didn't know that in June of 2020, I knew what happened in the past, but I didn't know what was still happening now as far as the fear. I've spoken to so many friends and so many Black friends who explain the fear that they live in every day when their children walk out the door. And I was like, what? Why? And like naive. And then I put myself out there, and the same thing, several of them said to me, we don't know why you don't see it. We're tired of talking about it. It's not our job to educate you. Go read books, go learn about it. And I'm not a book reader, but I have watched videos, I've watched movies, and now I understand. And now I understand. And so in moving forward, I think a lot of people do understand. I think the spotlight is on, and we all want to know, what can we do to heal this? What can we do? And can you give us some guidance? Because I know you said it's not one way, because everybody has different ideas when we spoke the other day. So what can we do to head towards healing and change and bringing people together? What would your first recommendation be, or multitude of recommendations for us?
I think one of the first things I would say is don't tell me that you understand. And
See, now we walk on eggshells when you say that. I'm like, oh my God, I said the wrong thing again. It's hard.
And it's not about making you wrong. It's about you asked me about my experience, and when I tell you what my experience is, validate it. And so if I'm a therapist, I do lots and lots. I've been doing therapy for almost 20 years in one sense or another, and I do a lot of trauma therapy. So I have people who have experienced sexual trauma, and some of it is pretty severe. And those people come to me for healing because they, and we work through together those things where they might tell their story. They have to work through, all these different layers of hurt and pain and guilt and shame and just what it's done to their life. And if I were to ever say to that person that I understand exactly what they were going through, I would be lying, because I've never experienced that thing. And I can empathize. I can say, this is not okay. I can say, I'm hurting for you. I can say, this is absolutely wrong. Maybe we should do something. Can we do something to combat against this? Like, let's work to change the norm so that you aren't in this space, and let me work with you one-on-one so that I can help you facilitate your healing, so you can get to a place where you can function in the world. And so I would rather, and again, I'm always going to qualify it with, this is just me, but I would rather you say that, like, this is the people who have called and checked on me, my white friends who have called to check on me during this whole like while everything has been like so heightened, have said to me, and this is what I appreciate, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? And they know that the answer is probably no, other than having the conversations and making sure that they, you know, and just continuing the conversation and being curious, but in a way that's empathetic and not putting me in a position where I have to put my pain aside to give you to help you to get it. Does that make sense?
It does. So I watched an interview with Matthew McConaughey and Emmanuel Acho, and every time the point was brought up by Emmanuel, Matthew McConaughey just said heard. Like instead of saying I hear you, like heard, heard, heard. Like he kept doing that. So that's what you mean with validation of that must be, saying things like that must be terrible. I hear you. This is awful. But when we say, what can we do? I've said that to a lot of people. What can I do? What can I do? To the point where I want to apologize to those of my black friends who I said, what can I do? And they said, I don't know, because they don't know either what we can do. So what can we do other than, okay, emphasize, be that listening ear, not say I get it, not say I understand, but I'm here for you to vent. But I'm finding a lot of people, they don't really want to talk about it. They feel that they've been, you know, oppressed for so long that they don't really want to bring it all back up again, and nor do I want to cause that pain with them. So what can we do?
I would say that, and I don't know, everybody has a different experience, but I think that the conversations are happening in the community. So I think maybe if it were me saying that I'm tired of talking about it, I mean that I'm tired of talking about it to white people. And from a space that I have, like, every time this is not something that has to be proven. It's very blatant. It's out there. It's happened over and over and over again. And we can say all of the names of the victims that we know, and we can talk about the hundreds or thousands or more that we don't know their names. And there would still be questions brought to us about, well, what can I do to help you? Like, I mean, there are things that you can do, but it goes beyond just like right now. This is a popular topic, and I hate to say it that way, but these conversations happen in my household and in my circle all the time. They've been happening for over a decade,
Right.
and these conversations are brand new to a lot of people, and it's good because people's consciousness is getting heightened. People are seeing it more. Like, maybe now people are starting to actually believe that it's happening. And at the same time, it's like, okay, so now you catch up. Now it's on you. How much are you going to have the conversations? Can I trust that you will have the conversations when the hype is over? If whatever happens from this case with in George Floyd's case, if these police, because I'm not feeling very trusting or I don't have a lot of belief in the justice system that these police will be prosecuted because of the experiences that I've had. So if that happens, or if it doesn't, how will you continue the conversation in your homes, in your communities, at your workplaces, things like that? And Kathy, I know you were getting ready to.
No, go ahead.
No, it's good.
Like, I think inside of me, it's like I want to ask people, everybody who's tuning in, I want to ask them to just take a minute and look inward. What are you feeling right now? As we're having this discussion, as you're hearing Dr. Delisa talk, as you're hearing Kathy talk, what are you feeling? What in your mind, what's going on in your mind? But more importantly, what are you feeling in your heart? And then what learning is occurring? What change, what opportunity do you see within you? As you hear this discussion, as you see the dialogue, as you feel what's being expressed, to really, what can we do is slow down enough to really be able to take everything in and figure out what we can do within ourselves to be an ally, as Lisa had put on your page. Like, what does an ally look like? What can we say? What can we make sure that we do to be able to continue with the discussion, to be able to be seen, to be able to be heard in a way that is supportive?
And I think that what I'm hearing you say, Delisa, is we've been here before. We don't believe anything's going to change. When all the hype is over, everything's going to go back to normal, and it's going to return the same. I think, like what I hear you say, is there's a lack of trust that anything's going to be different. And
it's already being proven. Like it didn't happen where George Floyd's murder happened and then there was no more harassment of Black people by the police, or no more. Like there's stories after stories after stories. There's activists who now are being, are ending up missing. There's college kids who are being pulled over and tased. So no, I don't have a lot of hope about this. I do have hope for people and for humanity, of course, because we have to hope something. But I don't trust that this one incident is going to be the thing. I do believe that at some level it's catapulting the conversation that should have started a long time ago. So I'm glad that now we're having the conversations. And at the same time, I'm a little leery of what's going to come from this. There are more people who are taking a stand of all races, and I'm very grateful for that. And I believe that that's a step in the right direction, but it's a really small step.
And you know me, I want the steps to be big. We have a couple comments here that I want to read. When you said, how are people feeling, Kath? Anger, hurt, a desire to scream, a continued desire to vote and push anti-racist laws and policies. Another person said, I feel helpless because I love all my friends no matter what color they are. I'm frustrated because others do not share my universality. There's another comment here. What our light friends can do is they can speak up when they see injustice, like we do at Pillars of Light and Love. We started our platform on anti-bullying, kids against kids. Teach the children that there are other people out there that are not being treated justly and fairly, and when they see it happening, they should not ignore it, but speak up. We feel that this person's saying we have to start with the kids, and that would be a good start. And it's very frustrating, and I think we'd be really naive to think that we're going to get everybody to understand one another. It infuriates me to see the videos that I see of white people being outwardly racist on video. It makes me sick. And there are a lot of us who feel that way. And so we know we're not going to be able to heal everybody. We just know that. But if we can make it a little better, if we can help one person feel like, we're allies together, I think that, we have to start a little bit. The question here, is there any way to help others to expand echo chambers? What does that mean, Lori? I don't know. Echo chambers, is that like a therapy term or something I don't know about?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't know what that
Lori,
means
write
either.
something else there. Crystal's saying, make an effort to really get to know someone who doesn't like you or who worships different than you. So, that is always a great start, to make an effort to learn about people. And that was another question I had here for you, Dr. Delisa, is for those who don't know, I've talked to a lot of my Black friends, a lot of my Black coworkers, and the stories I heard were very similar to stories that you said. Can you share what it's like to be a Black parent today and the things that concern a Black parent today regarding their children being out in the world? Can you share some stories, and I'm sorry if they're going to be painful, ways that you have been disrespected, so people hear it from a real live person and know that it's happening? Because that's what I needed to hear in the last 2 weeks for my validations of, like, oh my gosh, there's a problem. Can you share some things, please?
So I'm going to frame it this way, and I'm going to say no.
Okay.
And I'm going to say no from a space of, it's what I don't want to do is have to try to convince anyone that what I've experienced is painful. And if it is painful to me personally, then it's not okay to ask me to rehash that.
Okay.
If I told you that I was sexually assaulted 2 years ago, would you ask me to rehash that story?
No.
Probably not.
No.
It's trauma is the same. We have the same personal reactions to it that we, regardless of what the trauma is, whether it's a car accident or whether it's we get robbed at gunpoint. Our brain responds similarly. What I will say is that if you think about how we educate our children as parents. So a lot of people who are watching are probably parents. And if you're not parents, you at least know children that you care about. And if you are white, your children learn about themselves in school. Your children they see representations of themselves all the time. And those representations of themselves are positive. They are hardworking. They're positive, excited. The kids are allowed to be children. If a kid does something that they get in trouble, they're just being kids. If they go into a store or walk out into the street, there's no conversation that a white parent has to have with their child about how to live in the world, other than maybe say please and thank you, or like the regular things that we teach to know the language, maybe. If you are a person of color, those conversations are very different. If you want your children to learn about people who look like you have to teach them, because they won't learn it in school. Even if they decide to major in it in college, they have to find a college that allows for that space. And then if I majored in African American studies, my resume would be automatically flagged because of what I chose to study. We have to teach our children how to deal with police, how to interact with white people, we have to teach our children this level of pride that we have to teach and ingrain in them, because the world shows us that we shouldn't feel that way. It shows us that that we are criminals. It shows us that we are adults way earlier than we should be. If you think about Tamir Rice or Emmett Till or Trayvon Martin, they were very much adultified, and they were all children when they were murdered. And the world didn't see them that way. They saw them as criminals because they were Black men. They see men and women Black people are viewed as men and women at a very early age. They're more likely to receive adult violations or adult level adult level prosecution.
Fines or
Yeah,
the fines. Yeah.
And we have to teach our kids that. We have to teach our kids to be respectful of white people, but also a little bit fearful. Because if a white person says that even in 2020 that you were somewhere or that you did something or you were a threat, then they are more likely to believe that white person than they are to believe you. So the education that we have is like completely different. We have to be bicultural, and that's not a new term. It's from W.E.B. Du Bois. It comes from however many years ago that was, where we have to learn to be ourselves and then also learn to live in your world too. And white people don't have to teach their children how to do that. And they don't have to teach their children that we have to do that either. And that's the invisibility of what privilege is. It's like people get really upset at the term white privilege, but that's what white privilege is. You get to teach your children that the world belongs to them, that they run it, that they are the leaders, that they are the ones in power, that they are the ones who are right and righteous, and that everybody else is secondary.
I don't teach that to my kids.
It's part of society, Kathy. It's not saying that you point blank teach or don't teach. It is our society. It's how it is. I have almost a 15-year-old daughter. I have never had a discussion with her as far as what she needs to do when she goes out, how she needs to interact with police, how she needs to do that. Because if she gets pulled over by the police are going to drop her off at our house. She's
And
not going to
that's what
have
I
a
want,
gun
right? And that's what I
on
want
her.
viewers. Yeah, that's what I want viewers who don't understand that the difference, the different conversations and the different things. I have spoken to many of my black friends who said we have to teach our son. If you get pulled over, this is what you do. You put your hands on the dash, you say yes sir, no sir, you don't reach for anything. We don't have to teach our kids that. And that is what white privilege is, because there are a lot of my friends who are offended when they hear, like you said, Delisa, white privilege is real. They don't understand what that means. It's like, well, I worked hard, so I'm allowed to have what I want. I'm like, that's not what white privilege is. It's the fact that you don't have to worry as a white mother that if your kid gets pulled over, like you said, Kath, they may help her get home,
No,
or
I don't have to worry, okay, that when Emma goes out, she's going to be shot. So when Delisa talks about trauma, and when she talks about trauma, we are privileged enough to not have to fear that, and other people are not.
but we're not aware of it though. Like, we're not aware that
But
we're privileged.
but
I think a lot of people say that to me. They're like, I don't feel privileged. I don't feel that. And I'm like,
yeah,
you're not
but
getting it. You're not getting it.
I understand what you're saying, but there's also, I'm sorry, there's also denial and ignorance. So like when you say, like, tell me your experience, how did it happen? What was that like for you? You can't say that we don't understand the oppression and the violence and the inequity that exists. Look at the school systems, look at the housing, look at everything that exists. You can't say that we're not aware of this. And I'm not talking to you, Kathy. I'm just
No,
saying
I
in
understand.
general. I'm talking to everybody.
No, I
It's
understand.
like, do we take the time to really put together an in-depth look at what's really going on and what that means to everybody?
Yeah, I don't think people have taken the time until now, including myself, to take the time to understand and to look at it. I don't think we have, but I think now is the time. Like, people are looking and they want to know what they can do to make a difference. And
Look at, I'm just,
that's what they want. Like, people they want to help. The majority of everybody I talk to wants to help. And I totally understand what you're saying, Delisa. Like, yeah, okay, we'll see if this lasts, how long this lasts. But I can tell you people want to help, like I do with Pillars of Peace, and keep the conversation going and know that there's a safe place for people to be, you know, comfortable talking about uncomfortable things and what we can do. And I don't know what it's going to look like. Well, we formed a committee with Pillars of Peace. I wanted to wait until after tonight's call, that we're going to get together and decide, a diverse group of people, what can we do in our little community and what can we model as activities or events or things other than just a march. What can we do to bring people together, to educate people, to bring people together? Because what I didn't like that you said, Delisa, that hurts my heart, is when you said, oh, God, this is going to make me tear up, and I'm not a crier. When you said, we have to teach our kids how to live in your world. That's what you said. And to me, I'm thinking, this is our world. This is our world. It's not my world, the white world. We need this to be our world, and it hurts me that that's not what you can say. And that is painful for me. That's painful.
And I appreciate that. And it's like I said, a step in the right direction. That now you feel a microcosm of what I and the people who look like me experience every single moment of our lives, even when we're not visually, like, aware of it. I'm not aware of it every moment of my existence, but I am very aware of it when I'm out in the world. When I'm home, of course, it doesn't exist the same way. But when I'm out in the world, yes, it does. I was honestly, I'm never anxious having these conversations, but I was anxious to have this conversation live on the internet because one, I'm not going to ever put myself in a position where I'm going to take care of white guilt, number one. And I'm also not going to be I'm not fearful of what it is that I have to say, but there's repercussions that come from this. There's people are very afraid, understandably so, of having these conversations because of what can come of them. People can there's companies who are out there right now saying that if you post Black Lives Matter on your social media and we know that you work for us, then you'll lose your job. And there's I've been in so many positions, like in my professionalism, my place in the world gets questioned every single day from people who are white. And it doesn't happen as much when you are white. It doesn't happen the same way. I've been a college professor, and I have a PhD and a license in my field and lots of years of experience. That gives me the ability to be able to teach a course to someone who has a bachelor's degree and is pursuing a master's degree. That's what, when you go to school, that's what they tell you, that's what works. I've had students challenge my authority and say that, me correcting their grammar was inappropriate, or me, calling them out on, not following an assignment, or challenging them and pushing them in a way that a professor should push a student. And I've had them challenge me, and as far as to go up to the administration and complain about it when it was absolutely legitimate. And I have to wonder every single time something like that happens, is this happening because the student is just kind of a jerk? Or is this happening because I'm Black? And that's something that, if you're white, never crosses your mind. No one ever, as far as I know, I mean, unless it's a white professor teaching at like a historically Black university, will ever, and even then, it still probably wouldn't happen, would say, I wonder if they would treat me this way if I weren't white. And so, yeah, it's painful. It's hurtful. It's hard to digest. It's hard to hear. It's hard to experience. It's hard to look at, but it's real. And I'm tired of it. And what you can do is acknowledge that it's real. And the healing won't start until, as far as my opinion goes, the healing won't begin until I trust that you believe that it's real. I have friends of all colors too. I have white friends who I definitely believe are allies. We have the discussions though. I don't sugarcoat or take care of them if they're stuck in a place. And I think those are the conversations that are important, and that put us in a space where it's like, okay, yes, this is safe. I know that I'm safe with Kathy when we have these conversations, because she's shown me, just like in any relationship, you show a person that I validate and I understand, and I not understand, but I validate where you're coming from. I have empathy for you. I have love and care and consideration for you. And here's how I'm going to show you. And then you show that person in whatever way you show them. I think what feels icky is when someone one day is saying, well, why can't we all just be human? And then the next day it's like, oh, I get it. I understand. It feels fake. It feels, and I mean, none of us likes to feel like people are being disingenuous with us. And that's what it feels like is happening now, is a lot of people are stepping up. And I do believe that people do have genuine belief that they want to help.
But you want to see the proof. It's like, show me the money, Remember the movie Jerry Maguire? It's like, show me the money. It's all talk. Show me the money. I want to go to Kathy O'Connell. So Kat, knowing, Delisa, from therapy background, how do we gain the trust? How do white people gain the trust and just maybe it's a therapy thing, like how does anybody gain trust of other people? How do we do that? And maybe something that you say will be an aha moment for some of us on the call to say, okay, I can do that. How can we do it?
Uh, Sorry, my mind is spinning for a second. It's like when I hear you say, "How do we gain the trust?" and it's like,
How do you gain
what the
anybody's
question,
trust? Yeah.
how you gain people's trust is by being consistent, by being genuine, by being forthcoming, by being transparent, by being intentional with your words and actions, by listening, by being curious, by being warm. Um, but going back, like that's how trust is gained. Trust is gained by action, intention and action. So the action has to line up with what's being said, the words and the actions and the intention all have to line up. And I think that saying, how do we as white people figure out how to get Black people to trust us, is really what the question was. And I, the whole concept, and that's why my mind is spinning, like the whole concept is still divisive. It's why how do we get Black people to trust us? Well, you change the laws, you change the congressman, you change the structure, you change the legal system, you change how everything is done, so that not just from a person perspective, from a people perspective, from a friend perspective, but from a systemic system perspective, that major shifts and change happen. So it's not something that can just miraculously happen,
Right.
but it's again the longing. And I think Delisa has to talk to this also. It's like our and I'm saying ours as white people, like when you say, like, what do we do as white people to get Black people to trust us so that this doesn't happen anymore? And I'm not saying you, Kathy, I'm saying this is a lot of people saying this, so that this goes away. And that's not the case. That's why I'm saying, going back to turning inward and feeling, like, how do you trust? You trust when you show up for yourself and you're grounded in yourself and you're happy with yourself, but you're also present and grounded and transparent for those you care about and love, and those that you really don't like that much. You still set an intention of being kind, or being kind.
It's everything we teach at Pillars of Light and Love. Be the light, show the love. It's the same kind of thing, but it's just on a different. It's on a whole different stage. And um, I hear what you're saying. I just have to say this. Uh, Dr. Delisa, your daughter Mackenzie posted here, and she just said, jumping in to say, as an educator, a Black woman, the eldest daughter of Dr. Delisa, I'm very proud of this conversation being done over the internet because it needed to get done, and I'm proud to have a mother that is willing to be this vulnerable and vocal. There you
Well,
go.
you can't make me cry. I have to
That's
say,
a
Wait,
stop.
so first of all, you have an adult daughter? Because that amazes me, because I can't believe that you do, because you look very young to me. So there you go. That's your Mackenzie speaking up for you and how proud she is of you. So that's awesome. That's awesome. I wanted to comment on that. Um, it's a shame to have to question whether or not your child is being treated differently because they are mixed or don't have the right last name. It's always at the back of your mind because they don't look like everyone else and people don't understand. You sometimes have to question people's motives. I've gotten this question a lot because a lot of friends I have biracial grandchildren or biracial children, and what is going through the minds of these children. It's almost like they feel like they have to take sides, and they're in a very difficult position. What do you recommend for those parents or grandparents? either one of you can answer that. What do you recommend for them who are going through a very difficult time right now?
I think for if the biracial is white and black or white and some other, that the grandparents, the parents who are white, have to get clear. They have to know that now I have to have those conversations with my children the same way everyone else does. I have to look inward to myself and think of ways in which I have been privileged in this world because of who I am, and the challenges now that my child or grandchild is going to have because they are not like me. Because it doesn't, it is a challenge. It is hard. It's as hard of a pill as it is to swallow. If a white person and a black person have a child, that child is black. That's how the world sees them. And that's yes, the child still has multiple cultures to connect to, and they probably get a lot of love from their white family just like they do from their black family, but the world still sees them as black, and that means something. And if the parents aren't willing to explore what that means, then their child is going to have some challenges and be faced with some things that they may not be prepared for.
So again, it's awareness and education. And what do you think, on the lines of education, what do you think needs to change in the schools?
The entire way that we educate.
Sorry, I didn't, I didn't mean to laugh.
I mean,
Everything,
A lot, a lot, right? I
everything.
mean, that's what I'm hearing.
The
Like,
everything.
and learning math, yeah, pretty much everything. And I mean, our education system sets us up in a certain type of way so that we all become a certain type of person. But that's a conversation for another day. But doing more than giving people the space to educate people related to how they are culturally educating them. So doing it from a space of, if this is the neighborhood that you live in, like understanding the value of your community, understanding the value of where you come from, and not just, this is the law, these are the rules, these are your heroes, and dismiss everybody else.
okay. Kathy, I want to ask you regarding, you touched on a little bit about inner healing. So there have been a lot of people who've carried a lot of hurt for many years, who have heard it, from their families, and not just, not just those who are black, but, a lot of people shared stories in Pillars of Peace of things that have happened to them and their family and how they had to, work on that. What are the, quick couple steps that anybody who's listening could focus on for working on their own inner healing of whether they've been abused as children, whether they've in abusive relationships now, like what has to happen other than awareness of something's not feeling right? What else has to happen to start inner healing?
I think I think a lot of people being brave enough to ask for some support from someone who kind of has the skill set that can help you be able to go back and look at these traumas, look at these experiences and the belief systems and the behaviors and the actions that come as a result of the trauma and your experiences, so that you can possibly, I guess the word would be like, begin to neutralize them. Like we are taught very, very early on that something's good or bad, right or wrong, and our judgments of everything that has occurred to us. I don't think there's anybody that I've ever met who hasn't had their own type of trauma, whatever that may be. But it's being able to look at that and be able to figure out what you make that mean to yourself, and how you come to terms with that experience, and how you potentially redefine the experience, and your what you want to make it mean, and how you want it to impact your life. But it is, for a lot of people, it's a very difficult process. And you have to, I think, it's a big help to be able to get someone who has the skill set, to be able to support you through that journey, because it's a process and it's a journey. And it's a process and a journey of self-discovery and awareness. And lots of times the belief systems that we hold and the patterns that we hold, a lot of them are unconscious, and we don't even know, where they came from, or that we're doing them. That, when people say, like, that's just the way that I am, it's unconscious. We're on autopilot. We're just doing what we do. It's being able to get some support to be able to help you trail back and say, okay, where did that come from? How come I do that? What is that from my family of origin? Is that from this experience? Is that from this trauma? So being able to unpack that, and to be able to unpack it and try to really understand it, and then be able to feel strong enough to be able to redefine how it affects you. And that's hard. It's very hard. It's doable. It's wonderful, but it's very hard.
And it sounds like it's a lot of work that has to be done. And
Well,
you have to have the desire
well, you choose.
for
You
that healing.
choose.
You have to choose
Right.
for that healing. And I guess it brings
Like,
us all the way back. It's a big circle to, so many of us want to heal the pain, and we want to help the pain to go away. And what I've learned tonight from Dr. Delisa is your guard is up. Your guard is up, like, been here before. I don't know if it's really going to work this. And there's many of us like, no, we're here for you. We want to help. We want to help. Tell us how to help. Teach us how to help. I think we have a couple ideas today. Be an ally. Don't say we understand, because we haven't been there. Don't say we get it. Acknowledge that there's white privilege, not as a bad word. A lot of my friends, are saying, they're messaging me, I don't want to be called privileged. That's not what it means. It's not, and we do have to stop a lot of the blaming on both sides. I think that I don't like the finger pointing and the finger pointing back and forth. We have to get to a level of understanding, and I know we're not going to do it in this 1 hour time frame, to get all the answers everywhere, but I guess, Kathy kind of answered it on what needs to happen before, we know that you can trust. And you said the change. We've got to see the change with, the police rules. We got to see the change. And what you said was very valid. But for as many stories as I saw of things that are still happening, I also saw a lot of videos of people coming together, of white people and black people together in the protests, and people saying, "No, I got you. I'm with you. I'm here." I think we're always going to have two sides to everything, but I see things I have not seen before. I have not seen marches with so many white people joining the black people. I have not seen that before. And the videos going up, even with the police. I have lots of friends who are married to police officers. My nephew's a police officer. My uncle was a police chief. Like, a lot of them also are living in fear, and they want reform, and they want things to change too. And so I think we're taking some baby steps here. I mean, I see it happening, and I, for one, am committed through Pillars of Peace to not let the conversation stop. And I hope that the two of you will, hopefully join me on a journey of continuing it. Wow, we only have 6 minutes. We would like anybody who has any questions here. I'm seeing if there's any questions. Does anyone here who's watching have a question in the group for Dr. Delisa Martinez or Kathy O'Connell that you'd like to post in the comments in the Pillars of Peace group? And if you give me a minute. I'm gonna look on my phone on my personal page to see if there's any questions over there for our last 5 minutes. And do you ladies have any additional thoughts that you heard that while I'm talking, like I talk so much, that you want to be sure, the point that you are sure that you want to make tonight? Before.
I do want to say that I am not hopeless, and we don't want to talk from a space of all or nothing, because it's never that. It's never absolute. There are good cops. There are good cops who are white. There are plenty of white people who take a stand. There are lots of people who are allies and who show that, even if they don't quite know how. I think the important part is just acknowledging that there's so much pain and so many layers. We're only at like that, barely at that first part of the skin of the onion that we're starting to unpeel. And because we didn't even touch on like the way that, like, all the rage that's coming up, because people are questioning things like, why the riots, why the looting, why all these things. And I'll always refer it back to a trauma response. Rage is a natural response to trauma, and oppression, and that's what it is. Oppression is a trauma, and it gets passed down. It's been passed down through generations and generations and generations. And sometimes people get to the place where they don't even know how to respond or why they're responding in the way that they do, but they still have that trauma response. There's lots of research about it related to the Holocaust. Like, survivors of the Holocaust generations down the line have still the same trauma responses that the people who were survivors or victims had, who were survivors of the Holocaust, have those same trauma responses 2 and 3 generations later that their forefathers, or whatever you call them, did. And that's 2 or 3 generations removed. We're talking about 400 years of generations, and what's been embedded not only in us as Black people, but in white people as well. And then also in people of color who are Asian or Latino or Native American, who also get these things ingrained in them. And now we have this way of being, of how we learn how to treat each other, how we learn how to see one another or not see one another. And that's very, very important. So if we're talking about approaching our healing, I think it's really important to start with, like, just being aware and acknowledging where we are now, which is not a bad place, but where we have been too, which is absolutely a very painful place for all sides. It was hard. I can't imagine that anybody watched that video that George Floyd and thought it was something easy to watch. So I'm not saying that I don't want to come off like, I'm just, anti everything. And that's what a lot of times people think, that if I'm pro-Black or if I say Black Lives Matter, that means I'm anti everything else, anti-white.
That's a big thing, Delise, because I'm glad. I wanted to be sure that we talked about that. When people are saying, they're putting up Black Lives Matter, and people are saying all lives matter, blue lives matter, can you explain what that feels like and why that's so offensive? Oh.
When we have 5 minutes. It's
Yeah.
when there was a shooting at Columbine, it was at 97. I don't know why that popped in my head. We didn't say this is a tragedy, but all schools matter. We prayed for the kids at Columbine. When 9/11 happened, we didn't say all towers matter. We said, this is a tragedy. We have to come together for this cause. When someone says, I'm wearing a pink ribbon because my mother has breast cancer, we don't say all cancers matter. We say it's valid that you have this experience and that you want us to rally together for your cause. That's all that's being asked. It's, yeah, all lives matter. Duh. We're all human. Duh.
Right, it's
That's
taken
very,
as right. It's taken as offensive. So the way that the white people were feeling was they think only their lives matter. My life matters too, and I'm like, that's not it. That's not it. That's not what they're saying.
and
And
at some level, we've been taught that our lives don't matter to you. Not, maybe not to you personally. Whoever is watching, it's probably not you. I'm
that
going to
that
say that whoever's watching, if you're in this conversation, unless you just had a light bulb go off, it's probably not you I'm talking to. But there are plenty of people on the planet, in this world, in this country, in this city, that live across the street, who don't value my life or the people or the lives of people who look like me the same way I'm expected to value yours.
and that's the perception that needs to be changed, and that's the perception that I know a lot of people want to change. And just like when you said before, that you have to live in our world, like, no, in the white world, no, it's our world. And my 12-year-old granddaughter is like, this is our world. Why do people feel like, she even said that to me the other day. She goes, what's going on? Like, the kids, I think, will get it way before the adults. But like Kathy, you and I were talking the other day, it's the inner beliefs. It's what you grew up listening to from your parents or your grandparents, and what they said. And now a lot of people's eyes have to be open of like, wait a minute, the belief system that I have from growing up is not really true. Like, I had no idea that black mothers worry every time their sons go out the door. I had no idea about that. How would I know that? I know it now, but I wasn't taught that in school. We weren't taught about a Black Wall Street. We weren't taught. I'm reading about all this stuff, learning about this stuff now. No idea. No idea. The only thing I knew about was the KKK. That's the only thing that we ever talked about in school. We didn't learn. Our parents didn't teach us. Now, yes, I hear educate yourself. So a lot of people are doing that. And it's important to understand what white privilege is. It's important to understand implicit bias. It's important to understand that there are peaceful protesters there, and then there are opportunists who are going to go and loot the stores, and they make,
And all of those opportunists are not Black.
they're not black.
Did you? I
They're
know.
not black. And I posted a video and I said, look who's there. And somebody's like, why? You can't say it. It's black people. I said, no, look at the white girl who put the
The
thing in.
white woman
Yes.
set Wendy's on fire.
Yeah. Yes.
Hmm.
The white woman was putting the things in the Mercedes dealer. That's what I'm saying. This is
White
not,
woman set the Wendy's on fire down in Atlanta.
oh, ah, ah. So these things, there's only this much. And this is what I think. The media is only showing us this much. They have not done black people justice in the media at all. And that's got to be painful for you, because it's painful for me to watch little snippets that they give to try and guide us and control us. And this is why people have to stand up. We have to stand up beside you. And I feel like we want to stand up beside you, and you're kind of sitting there like, yeah, you're gonna have to pull me along, because I don't know where this is going, and I don't know if I want to be on the boat with you here, Kath. I feel like we have a lot of work to do on our end, a lot of work to build your trust.
Hmm.
We have a lot to do,
Absolutely.
and we want to do. Let me see if there's any questions. Uh, the media must go. Yeah. We know this. I want to start a channel. Like, I have a Facebook group called A Dose of Sunshine, where you can only put happy stuff on there. Like, I want a news channel that's real somewhere. If I have to start my own YouTube channel that's real, happy news that tells the whole story and not just a little part that's going to make you mad, because that's what they like, the drama. Kathy O'Connell, what do you have to close with? What'd you say that you see
Uh,
now? You know Delisa, you know other people and how they feel, you know me, and my, discovery in all of this. Like, what advice do you have for people watching?
Take the time to learn. Seek out true teachers. When I say true teachers, I learned more from Delisa than I have any other human being. And you seek out your true teachers, the people that really help you learn and help you see yourself in, just seek out the true teachers.
And that's why Delisa's here, because Kathy recommended. I said, I want to do something. She goes, I have somebody. I have somebody who's taught me so much. And Delisa, I hope, and I might even challenge you to if you'll take the challenge to be, because I know you said you were anxious to do this, to be willing to help the story continue, to help the rest of us learn what you've taught your students and what you've taught Kathy O'Connell. If you'd be willing to be a part of that, give us that time going forward, because we need you.
Yeah, I'm anxious to do it, but it's necessary. It's who I am. So I do it even with the anxiety, because I think it's important to show that part also. Because I don't have all the answers, and I do have some of my own pain related to this, and I think that's what makes this conversation so important, is that even though I, have reached whatever level of education and I even teach this, that it's still very real for all of us. So absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your time tonight. And we're getting lots of people. You guys can read the comments later. We've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. I think we've come a long way in the last 2 weeks. I just know that with the spotlight being on this, and I have to believe that George Floyd's life matters, and that it matters because there will be change. And I think it's our job to make sure that it matters. And so many of us want that. And I think that's the main thing. We have to earn your trust. We have to help change your perception. We have to help you feel that this is our world together, your world and my world. And I feel that we can do that. I mean, somebody's got to stand up and somebody's got to lead. And if we can have these dialogues going forward, I think we can make change. I mean, it has to start with somebody. And I appreciate you being here, and as painful and as it was, but for the level of understanding that was needed. And Kathy, you too. I know, there's a lot of work to be done, and I know it gets overwhelming, and I get extremely overwhelmed, but I feel if we can help one person get it, and if we can help one person feel less pain, and let you know that we're here and we want to help, that's the most important message, I think. I don't want to say I understand, I don't want to say I get it, I want to say I want to help. Oh, there's our last alarm. So I don't see any other questions in here, except lots of thank yous. Lots of thank yous to you, Dr. Delisa, and to you, Kathy, and for us
Welcome.
getting the group together. So we're going to have a committee. We're going to decide on things. We will have to decide how we're going to move forward. But I thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for
You're
tuning
welcome.
in. And
Thank you.
this is not the end. I promise. This is not the end of the discussion. So thank you both very much. And thank you, everybody. Okay, signing off.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good night.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.